So for those waiting for Apple's new Homehub device, I come bearing not so great news about new features being cut to get this out faster on time, so let's delve in. Mark Gurman says Apple's pulled some of its bolder features of the Homehub so that they can release this by the end of the year at the earliest, though exact timing still remains in the air. Now what features have been scrapped? We have no idea. It's sometimes frustrating how vague Gurman is with his wording, and it's honestly hard for me to predict what Apple has removed. We did earlier hear the product has been delayed because Apple Intelligence Siri features had been delayed, and this allegedly is a core aspect of the hub as well. So maybe that's what Gurman is referring to being cut, but I do still expect this to have basic HomeKit support and basic smart home features. Now the good news is that whatever's being cut out of the first generation Homehub will still be available with subsequent models, and so if whatever they remove is a deal breaker, the next model will likely include it. I just hope we see the first generation model launch at the September event, and actually supply chain analyst Min Chiu Kuo told us that mass production for this hub begins in the second half of this year, so yeah, that to me does suggest a September release. Gurman believes this will be Apple's most significant release this year, and it's a sign that Apple will be taking their smart home business more seriously now. But you may be wondering, what exactly does this product aim to do? Well, Gurman describes it as a smaller and cheaper iPad that can be used to control appliances, conduct FaceTime calls, and handle other tasks, which is pretty vague once again, but this essentially is going to be the same product Google and Amazon have been offering for years. Now specs wise, this should have a 7-inch display, which is kind of crazy to hear about because the 16 Pro Max has a 6.9-inch display. Obviously the aspect ratio will be different, but I'm kind of surprised it's going to be that small. Anyway, powering this will be the A18 chipset, which means this will be able to run Apple Intelligence, and that makes sense because ideally you want this to have the smarter Siri to control your smart home products, though for the time being we're going to be stuck with a regular version of Siri that's likely going to be useless as always. But you know what would not be a useless thing to do? Clicking that subscribe button, of course. It's free and it'll bring you the latest of Apple right to your subscription box, so please consider it. It would be appreciated. Join the Saran Pack gang now. Now you may wonder, everything so far sounds pretty much like what Google and Amazon has been offering for years with their smart hub devices, and so what's exactly the Apple twist with this product? Well, it seems this will work similarly to Google's Pixel tablet. That can be attached to a base with a speaker when you want to use it as a glorified home hub device, but you can take it off the hub and use it as a tablet when needed. Here with this Homehub device, this can either be attached on a base with speakers possibly built in, or can be mounted on a wall, which is pretty nice. Especially if you mount it on a wall, you can basically use the hub as a home security system to monitor camera footage outside your house, as well as maybe to control the temperature of your house off this. I will say though, I think I'd rather have a base for the iPad that turns that into a Homehub device, because this device seems to be pretty small, and I'd much rather have the iPad serve two purposes than having to buy a specialized product. But knowing Apple, they wanted to buy both an iPad and a Homehub, and so yeah, they're not going to offer a base for the iPad. This device will also run a specialized OS called HomeOS, with a customizable widget-focused home screen. It will revolve around Siri, which does not sound great, and there's also going to be HomeKit support as expected. There will also be a built-in camera FaceTime, and I think John Pros had mentioned this, but there is a possibility older people who just want to talk to their family will buy this, since I'm sure there are those who just want a simplified operating system that's easy to use. Now pricing is really my main concern, because small home hubs like this are usually $100, but knowing Apple there will be a premium, and so ideally this should be $199, which would not be too bad, but there is a possibility Apple does overprice this. By the way, branding wise, Apple could either include this under the HomePod branding and call it the Home Hub or the HomePod Hub, or alternatively this might be a separate product altogether and could be called Apple Home. Marketing names are only finalized a few weeks before release anyway, so I'm sure nothing is set in release right now, but yeah, Apple could literally call this anything they want. Of course, not everyone wants a tiny iPad, and so what's happening with the existing HomePod range? Well, the regular HomePod was updated in 2023, and there's not really much they could do with it apart from updating the internals, but honestly the biggest thing they should address is the pricing, because I still think it's too expensive. But now let's talk about the most popular HomePod in the range, which is the cheapest model of course. There have been rumours about a new HomePod mini later this year, so what can we expect with this? Well, the main change should be a new chipset. Currently the mini has the S5 from the Apple Watch Series 5, and first generation Apple Watch SE, which is pretty old. Now if we do see a late 2025 release, like Gurman does suggest, we should likely get the S11 chipset with the introduction of Apple Watch Series 11, and so that could come to the HomePod mini as well. Although do remember the 2023 HomePod got the S7 instead of the latest S8 at the time, so it's possible this also gets an older chipset, but honestly, that makes no difference when it comes to a smart speaker. You're not going to be playing COD Mobile on this, and also the S10 and the S11 should be roughly the same performance-wise. Now, what will a new chipset bring to the HomePod mini? Well, it should reduce latency for handoff, it could also help process Siri requests locally faster on the device, and with this new chipset upgrade, we should apparently see Apple launch their first combined Wi-Fi and Bluetooth chipset. And since the current HomePod mini does have Wi-Fi 4 support, this new chipset could bring Wi-Fi 6E and Bluetooth 5.3 support for faster, more reliable connectivity. We should also see the usual sound improvements, though someone who does use HomePod minis as TV speakers, they're honestly pretty good as is. Maybe they could be a little louder volume-wise, and so I'm hoping the second gen can work on that, but yeah, I'm pretty happy with the audio in the first gen. I do also hope they refresh the colors, but knowing Tim and his addiction to recycling, I would not be surprised if they end up recycling the same colors and basically the same design, but that's not the worst thing in the world considering the colors right now are pretty nice, but I do hope there's at least one new shade. There could also be a new ultra wideband chipset for lower latency when using handoff, but hey, all that matters at the end of the day is the price staying at $99. That's what made the HomePod mini so popular in the first place, because not everyone wants a fancy smart hub or an overpriced speaker, they just need something that plays music pretty well and does some basic smart home functions, and so the HomePod mini will continue being the best seller. I just hope the price stays the same and there's no price increase, because $99 was the reason the HomePod mini worked in the first place, and the high price of the original HomePod was the reason it failed, and so yeah, it's crucial this gets no price increase. Let's now delve into your comments regarding future HomePods. So Cat K says, they should just make a sound system or soundbar, not this Apple Homehub, it will flop. Now, I'm not sure about the Homehub flopping. I think that depending on the price, there is a market for this, especially if it's a simplified UI and has basic functions like FaceTiming. I think there is a market for that, but again, it depends on the price. It needs to be $199. And regarding a soundbar, yes, that would be nice, but then again, I think Apple's fine with people just using HomePods as TV speakers. That's what I do and many others, and HomePods do certainly do the job in this aspect. J Smoothie says a green HomePod mini would be cool, and yeah, a green HomePod mini would be nice, I agree. I will take any new color, and I'm hoping they do refresh the shades with the new HomePod mini launching later this year. Brian says, I use Amazon Echo devices rather than HomePods, and the Echo Show 5 is pretty handy. And yeah, I know many do prefer HomeHub devices, hence why Apple's now releasing one, and I'm hoping it is priced pretty reasonably for an Apple product, but does also offer a USB compared to other smart devices. I'm assuming the Apple ecosystem integration is going to be the key selling point, and so yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing how this product shapes out to be. Anyway, let me know your thoughts in the comments, so make sure to like and subscribe for more content like this, and thank you for watching.